Hello, it's Citrine, and this is a DIY video on how to make a wire-wrapped bracelet. You'll have a bunch of beads, a set of brass wire strips, and a clasp. All you'll need from home are your own pair of pliers. I suggest using needle nose. To begin your bracelet, grab a piece of wire. Use your pliers to grab the wire about 1/4 inch on one end. Now use the pliers to bend that wire into a little loop. Once you've created the little loop, grab the loop with your pliers and use your finger to bend the short part of the wire that's sticking out around the longer part of the wire until it turns into a little coil. Use your finger for the initial bend, then use your pliers to wrap the rest of the wire around. It's probably going to take a little bit of practice. They're not going to be perfect, but ideally you'll want it to look like a little coil, flush on the end, close to the little loop. So once you've created the little loop and then wrapped the short end of the wire around, you'll grab a bead and put it onto the long side of the wire and repeat the first step, enclosing the bead onto your first link of your bracelet. Simply repeat the first step, grab the wire about 1/4 inch from the end and bend the wire into a loop. Then wrap the shorter end that's sticking out around until it looks like a little coil and the end of the wire is flush. Be careful using your pliers near the glass beads. You can accidentally clamp down and shatter them. Once you finish this second wrap around, you've completed your first link on your citrine bracelet. It's pretty smooth sailing from here. You're going to repeat the same steps, except you're going to connect every link to the one before it. You take a second piece of wire, bend the wire into another loop. Before you close the loop, pick up your first link and thread it through one of the holes. Now that your first link is connected to your second, you can close the first loop on your second link. Grab the loop with your pliers. Then with your finger, bend the shorter piece of wire that's sticking out up and around the longer piece into a coil. Remember to use your pliers to create the coil, or you might end up stabbing your finger with the wire. Just be careful. Now you add your second bead. Create your second loop on your second link. Grab the loop with your pliers, use your finger to bend the wire around, then use your pliers to complete the coil, and your second link will be finished and connected to your first. Like I said before, you're just going to be repeating the same steps over and over again. It's critical not to forget to connect your links to each other. So when you go in to grab your third piece of wire to create your third link, grab it 1/4 inch from the end and create your first loop. Before you bend the wire around to close it in a coil, thread your chain through to connect your two connected links to your third link. Then you're gonna grab the loop and use your finger to bend the wire, then use your pliers to complete the coil, and you'll be ready to add your third bead onto your almost completed third link of your bracelet. It won't be long before you get the hang of how to hold on to your links that are connected while you're working on the new link. Just take your time and be patient. As you build your bracelet, you'll get an idea of just how long you need it to be and how many links you need. Everybody's wrist is different. Everybody's preference on if they want a tight bracelet or a loose bracelet is different. This is the benefit to designing your own jewelry and making things for yourself, is that you can make it very personal as to what size and shapes and colors that you want it to be. So you're beginning your fourth link here. You're grabbing your fourth piece of wire a 1/4 of an inch from the end and bending that piece of wire into a little loop, threading the chain through your loop, then grabbing your loop with your pliers, bending the short piece of wire around the longer piece with your finger, and then creating the coil or the wrap around with your pliers. So at this point, I'm just going to let the video display play out. I'm not going to give you any more verbal instruction until you're ready to put your clasp on. So enjoy this music. If you need a step-by-step, just rewind the video and go back to the beginning. It's the same thing over and over again. Otherwise, you can just watch the visual cues to get an idea of how I make the bracelet. Really, all you need to make sure you're paying attention to is that you're connecting your links to your chain and that you're paying attention to the length of your bracelet so you don't make it too long.
Cause here I come. Get ready. Get ready. Cause here I come. Be look out, baby.
As you're making your bracelet, a good way to measure it to make sure it's the length you want it to be is to just stop and wrap it around your wrist. And a good stopping point is when you can wrap your bracelet around your wrist and there's about a link of space between each end. That way you have room for one more link and to add your clasp. Once you've got your bracelet at your desired length, you're going to need to add a clasp. Adding a clasp is a fairly simple process. You add it to your second loop at the end of your link, similar to how you connect your new link to your chain. Grab your last piece of wire and bend it into a loop, connecting it to your chain. You're grabbing your loop with your pliers, bending the short part of the wire with your finger, and then coiling it, wrapping it around the longer part of your wire with your pliers. Next, you add your last bead. Bend the wire into your second loop. Now, before you wrap the short part of the wire around into a coil, you thread your clasp through into that loop. You're going to carefully grab the loop with your pliers. Don't grab the clasp, but grab the loop with the clasp on the side. Then you bend your wire with your finger, and you have to carefully wrap the wire into a coil with the clasp still in your loop. Be careful not to clench your clasp in your pliers while you're creating your coil and ending your bracelet. Once you've added the clasp to the last loop and coiled the remaining wire, your bracelet is complete and you did a great job. You've got your bracelet, it's ready to be worn. Now, if you have a few leftover pieces, I have another instructional video on how to make yourself a ring. Thank you so much for tuning in to Citrine's DIY. This is my first DIY video, so please be patient as I iron out kinks, and I would love any feedback if you have any. So I hope that it was helpful and that you got your jewelry done. Please send me any feedback and please send me pictures of your final product. I would be amazed to see how yours turned out. I'm sure it turned out amazing. Everybody wraps different, so I'm excited to see how yours turned out. And thanks again. This is Citrine.